revolution is taking place. This revolution is not happening in the streets behind barricades. It does not involve guns and grenades. It is taking place in medical laboratories, where the revolutionaries crouch behind computers and microscopes and arm themselves with new theories and ideas. This is the brain revolution, and it is changing the way that we see almost everything, including the way we can best help others to achieve positive and meaningful changes in their lives.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Remember the new millennium?
6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
Happy New Year!
A lot has changed since then. The technological advances are staggering. In the year 2000, we all feared that the Y2K bug would bring our computer systems, as well as the aircraft that depended on them, to a crashing halt. No one yet owned a smartphone or a camera phone for that matter, and iPads and even iPods were unheard of. Wikipedia, YouTube, and Facebook were just unrealized dreams. And yet, all these changes pale into insignificance in comparison to what we have discovered about the incredible brain over this period of time. We have learned more about the brain since the new millennium than we have in the entire history of humankind pre the year 2000. Consider the wonder of the brain. We each have about 100 billion brain cells or neurons in our heads. To understand how large a number this is, if you were to line up your neurons end to end, they would reach the entire length of the North Island. Or, if you decided to count them instead at the rate of 1 a second, it would take you 3,171 years to account for all of them. Most remarkable is the fact that there are more connections in your brain than there are between all the computers in the entire world. So what is this revolution teaching us about this remarkable organ in our heads? Let's focus on just one area: emotions. We have a broad emotional landscape, from joy, happiness, and optimism, all the way through to sorrow, pessimism, and despair. We know what gives us those feelings of elation, perhaps the sound of a child's laughter, an unexpected gift, a sporting victory, feeling understood by a close friend. We also know what gives us those awful feelings of depression: money difficulties, a fight with someone we care for, a traffic ticket, being restructured out of a job. We know the causes, but what is responsible for the actual feelings within us? What creates the ups and the downs? The answer, unsurprisingly, lies in the brain. Understanding the role of the brain in the way people experience emotion has strong implications on how we can best help them. The main actor responsible for our negative feelings is walnut-shaped and is no bigger than a fingernail. It's called the amygdala, and we have one each side of our brains. While you go about your daily business, your amygdala is constantly scanning the environment for any signs of threat, be it a growling dog or a scowl from your boss. Scientists have discovered that when we look at a picture of an angry face, the amygdala suddenly becomes very active, while a picture of a happy face leaves it in a blissful state of calm. Let's explore what happens when you have a negative experience. Your senses, in this case your eyes, pick up the threat. The amygdala is immediately alerted and sends a message down the spinal cord to the adrenal gland. Adrenaline is sent flooding through our system in a split second. You breathe more deeply and take in more oxygen, and your heart beats more and more rapidly. The increased oxygen is sent to the muscles, and we are now ready to either fight or flee. When a stress is short-lived, like the snake, our emergency systems can react rapidly and then return to a state of calm once it realizes that there's no real threat out there, or that the threat no longer poses any problem. When the stress is ongoing, however, which is more typical in our modern world, such as continuously trying to juggle home, family and work commitments, the stress system remains on for extended periods of time, leaving us feeling negative, tired, listless and worried. Scientists believe that our negative feelings have their origins in the influential amygdala. If the role of the amygdala sounds like it's being overstated, consider this experiment in which Japanese doctors removed the amygdala of a mouse, which consequently showed no fear whatsoever of the cat. So what about feelings at the other end of the spectrum? What happens when we're feeling great?
Well, it's not live right now, so you'll be okay.
It so happens that pleasure also has a home in our brain. This home is another small brain center not far away from the amygdala and goes by a similarly complex name, the nucleus accumbens. This pleasure center was found accidentally by two scientists who discovered that test rats that had a particular part of their brain electrically stimulated acted in rather unusual ways. Scientists devised a system which would allow these rats to stimulate their own brains by pushing down on a lever. What they discovered is that the rats preferred to push down the lever and experience the pleasurable feelings to the exclusion of everything else, including food, water, and sadly, even tending their young. The rats were even prepared to cross an electrified grid to reach the lever and get their pleasure fix. In experiments that certainly would not be passed by ethics committees today, electrodes were also planted in the pleasure centers of chronically depressed patients. When they received the electronic stimulation, they laughed and felt joy for no apparent reason.
What are you laughing about?
I don't know.
When they too were allowed to stimulate their own brains, they also chose to do it with surprising regularity. We have pain and pleasure centers in our brains. So what? Well, quite a lot really. The strength of our different brain systems and the way they interact tell us a lot about ourselves and how we get on with those around us. The chances are that if you're generally a happy, optimistic person, your pleasure center is dominant. If, however, you're a grumpy pessimist, your amygdala is probably in charge. Knowledge of our brain function is important because it helps us look in the right direction when trying to solve problems in our lives, as well as when trying to help those around us. Back in the year 2000, the dominant view was that the brain structure was fixed and that we had to make do with what we had. We now know, however, that this view is wrong and that at any stage of our lives we can grow new brain cells and develop new connections between existing ones. In other words, people can change. The question is how. One way we can help people tame their amygdala is through communing with them, allowing them to share their problems and verbalize their fears. The amygdala may be encouraged to stand down and withdraw its troops from careering around the body. This is an excellent solution in the short term. What about people who regularly feel negative, anxious, and pessimistic about life? The chances are that their amygdala is running hot like a car that is idling too high, constantly revving. Talking through the problem may not be enough for them. Armed with the right information and directed to the right places, these people may be able to help themselves with a bit of support. Relaxation techniques, particularly breathing exercises, have been scientifically proven to help many, though not all people. Alterations to lifestyle, including dietary changes and more exercise, may also benefit. There are experts in all of these fields who can assist individuals to make permanent changes in various areas of their lives. For a significant number of people, self-help or assisted self-help, if that makes any sense, will not be enough. For this group, the ongoing support of a professional will provide the best chance of meaningful change. Specific therapies conducted by trained professionals can facilitate real change in the lives of many. They can encourage people to reevaluate how they interpret negative feelings. Most importantly, therapists and psychologists can help individuals strengthen other brain systems that can take charge of the amygdala, tell it who's boss, and instruct it to settle down. The next level of support would be that of psychiatrists who can administer specific drugs that have been found to be highly effective in helping people cope with their moods. While therapies tend to work on the brain as a whole, drugs tend to target the amygdala itself. The ability for individuals to be able to regulate emotions cannot be stressed enough. There's strong evidence that those that have emotional control have feelings of greater self-satisfaction and are more successful in general than those with less control. Science tells us that we all have the ability to live happier, more contented lives. The trick in helping ourselves and others is to find the right key for each individual to unlock the power of the brain.